Last weekend, I was at Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle. It's flat out one of my favorite conventions on the circuit. And during this convention, I was very fortunate to be invited at two panels as a guest to talk about a couple of things. And so instead of having a classic version of Fave Fridays, you will get in the next two episodes the videos from these panels with amazing people next to me, and I'm thrilled that I can share that content with you. So without further ado, I'm your host, Fabrice Sapolsky. This is Fave Fridays. Hit it.
In today's panel, we're going to be talking about the sort of continuum of options that creators have for getting their works out, at starting with basically self-publishing and crowdfunding and all of that, to creator-owned, and what does that mean in the context of publications that that allow creator ownership, but they themselves are independently published. To corporate and licensed comics, and what does that mean? Some of our people here have publishing experience, editorial experience, as well as their own creative experience. A range of experience. Before I start questions for the panelists, I got a question for you guys. How many folks in here yourselves are aspiring creators and have questions about these business models? Because I want to make sure I leave plenty of time for audience questions and back and forth. Terrific. Okay, we will definitely do that. So let me do. Yeah.
Can I just cheat, because I didn't give myself very much service. Just for a little bit of background, the publishing we did was I started doing Mantle with Chris, who's over there. She was a little like Shelly. She worked at Marvel UK. I was in production and seduced me as an artist, and we moved to America as well.
Nice job.
And then you're great.
I love it.
So we started with Mantle, and then we moved to America and founded Mayfire, which was a digital progressive storytelling company from from about 2010, I guess. I was there for 4 years, and then subsequent to that, we've done quite a lot of KICKSTARTER work, so we've had quite a bit of experience across the board.
Awesome. So while we've got Shelly here, because if you missed it, she may need to pick up and leave because she's a superstar and she's in demand everywhere in this convention.
Sure.
But Shelly, so you came in through Vertigo, which was kind of a weird corner of DC where you had a mixture of different models. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that works?
Well, first, I have to tell you, I did not start my career at Vertigo. I started at Amigo. I was an editorial assistant in 1988, 3 months out of graduating from college with a degree in film, video, and audio production. And I discovered comics in 1987 when my screenwriting teacher showed us Peter Gross's Empire Lanes to explain storyboarding. And my jaw dropped, and I said, wow, I didn't even know they still made comics. Okay, so that's how I got interested in comics. Went to the comic book shop, discovered love graphics. So I started as an indie girl, and that's where I am right now. But my Vertigo career, I feel lucky about it. I started 2 months before Vertigo launched, so in the winter of '92. Instead of 2 weeks, I moved from Philadelphia to Midtown Manhattan to start my life, and I have not looked back. So yes, I was at Vertigo during those wonderful years in the 90s where we started out with a sprinkling of creator-owned books, but most of the Vertigo properties were part of Karen Berger's universe, if you will, and they were offhandedly called Berger books. Now, of course, Karen runs Berger books for Dark Horse, so sorry if I'm confusing anyone. But the early days of Vertigo was more about titles like The Sandman and Shape the Changing Man and Animal Man, which were company-owned characters
That's what you're here for.
Well, that's what we were doing. And we just kept reaching out to more creators. You know, I basically always wanted to edit comics that I wanted to read, and my love was the music and comics connection. So whereas maybe some of my boss's books were more traditional in terms of what you would see from like avant-garde superhero fare, I was always like going further afield. Like I would reach out to rock stars and say, hey, you know, one of my opening lines to Alex James of Blur was, comic book editor sees bass guitarist. And that's how I got into like emailing that. So I was doing that stuff in the mid-90s, because that's what I always wanted to do, was bridge different parts of pop culture with comics. Because I love the art form. Never been a big superhero fan, no offense. You should love what you love and buy what you love and support people that enjoy the things you like. But I was always into comics with that indie scope.
So when we talk about creator-owned at Vertigo, oh, this is my title. I would rather publish with Dark Horse now. Can I do that? I want to strike a deal for my own TV rights. Can I do that? Like, what does creator-owned mean in the context of a company like Vertigo?
Well, I can only speak about the original Vertigo, because I haven't been with Vertigo since 2016, but I can confidently tell you that back in the days between 1993 and 2016, a creator-owned deal was basically a 50-50 split with the company and the creators. So 50% of the proceeds of whatever was earned would be DC Comics Vertigo, and then the other 50% was split between the writer and often the artist, if the artist was a part of the creator-owned deal. So it was worked out that if there was a media deal, then there would be that split. But again, the artist and the writer would share that 50, so they each get 25. And at the time, especially in the early 90s, when these deals were being created, they seemed fair. You know, and I think a lot has changed since those times, so I can't comment on anything now at all, and how the company is run. But I will say that those early deals were very much, we tried to make it in a fair way, so that the creators could then eventually get their work back after a period of time. But it was very much a partnership, always.
Fair enough. Now, Liam, you have, as I mentioned, worked at all these different levels. You've done corporate-owned work. You've worked on creator-owned books that were owned by somebody other than yourself. And now you've done Starhenge, which is fully owned by you. Can you talk from your personal experience about the pros and cons of these different models, and what do you think gave you the best situation as a creator?
I guess going back to my first creator-owned experience, which I think would be for Vertigo. When you've been around as long as we've been around, sometimes the order of things gets a little jumbled up. But I think the first one I did was a testament to Vertigo. The Vertigo model was great because you had a page rate. That's a massive advantage. And honestly, the 50-50 thing seemed very reasonable at the time. And I, myself and Douglas Rushkoff, who created that series, do have it back, and we do own that outright. Not that it's become anything else, but it's like it's still got that potential to grow and become other things. I think there's so, oh my God, you could just talk about this all day. I'm sure we've bored many people in the bars over the years about these things. But there's pros and cons all across the board. Vertigo was great because, again, page rate. Doing something like Starhenge, which I own absolutely outright, so did the writing and the art, that was for Image, and they have a complete ownership deal for the creatives, which is amazing if you can afford to do it, and that's the downside. So, interestingly, the way everything works right now is you've got these crowdfunding models like KICKSTARTER. And we thought, okay, it is time for me to do a creator-owned book, but I do have a family, and I do live in California, or did at the time, which was stupidly expensive. Don't do it if you don't have to.
I can't get my husband to move back to England. He lives in LA, trust me, Liam, if I could. I thought when I married him, he was just going to say, no, I will not move from England. And I'm like, okay. Because I've been an Anglophile since 1974 when I discovered the But continue.
Well, we had two kids that moved back immediately as soon as they left school. They went straight back and left us in California on our own.
Smart kids.
What are we doing here? So
Good job. Good job, parents.
we're back there again. It's good. No, we're back in England. It's good. But to go back to the point, when it came to the opportunity to do a book for Image that I completely owned, but had no page rate, it's a case of like, okay, this is going to take me at least 8 months. How am I going to survive that time? And then I thought, you know what, I've been in the business for 35 years, maybe somebody would like to have a big collector's book of my artwork, like a showcase thing, an art book. And I, you know, as a kid, that's one of the things I used to love when I was getting into it. My shelves are full of the art books, whether it's Rosetta or, you know, anyone, all the way back. So I always wanted one of them. I thought, why don't we try a Kickstarter? And we did the first one, and it was a really big success. We got 1,400 orders for the book, which was pretty big for a Kickstarter.
Oh, yeah.
And that totally funded the 8 months it took to do Startage. But that's how we did it. So I think that, and this is just one of many, many approaches. If you're going to do your own series, you want to keep all the ownership, you don't want to risk, because companies will also, Image will give you an advance against potential earnings. But it's a risk. Yeah, and it also
some companies give nothing.
Yeah, some companies give nothing. That's your choice. We kind of opted to take no advance because it's a risk. You know, if not all of the books are going to make money by the time you get to issue 6, you might end up owing them money. It is a risk, especially if you've gone for a prestige kind of a format. So that was the chance we took on that one, and it was tight. It was tight, but it paid off. So yeah, I mean.
Now Fabrice and Eli, you guys you own the means of production for better or worse. And that, Fabrice, why don't you talk about your journey? Because again, you're somebody that's worked on different sides of the street on this, and where did you start out, and where are you at right now?
So the interesting thing is so I started on the French market where the rules are different. On the French market, there's something extremely interesting, is that from the get-go, it was always 50-50. But there's a twist. Like, the commercial rights are always owned by the publisher, but the moral rights are owned by the creators, and they can't be bought or modified or anything. Have you heard of a character called Asterix?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the Asterix law, because famously, the Asterix creators sued their publishers because they thought, and the law allowed it, that there was a lot of money involved and none of the profit went to them, nothing. And they of course contributed, and if you are going to go for a 50-50, then they should have had 50-50 of everything. This is at the time in the 80s when we started talking about media rights, which were not a thing before. Like media rights, like I think the Superman rights were sold for nothing to the Salkowicz in the early 70s, and that's how they could like monetize it and kind of like bankroll an empire that they lost after. But so it was not a thing before that, and I guess Star Wars changed a lot of things in entertainment. I think everyone can agree on that. So I come from this background, and I'm gonna say it, I never liked French comics. My heart was always with American comics from when I was 6 years old. So when I grew up, I wanted to be in American comics. So I started as a journalist, and then I started covering, and these contract issues came very early on because I started my career in comic book journalism in 1997. And it was at the time where there were a lot of rumblings, and a year later, Wildstorm was sold to DC Comics. And that triggered a chain of events that we're still experiencing today. So it's interesting how creator-owned, even the name creator-owned, like Shelly was saying 50-50,
That's what we now call creator share. Because creator owned is understood now as really creator owned, like the creators own 100% of it. Some companies have come and offered deals that were full creator owned, but then who's making the money? The publisher becomes not a publisher, it becomes a partner. And if the publisher becomes a partner, then it's a completely different dynamics. But there are like everything. So in my career, the best and the worst thing that happened to me is that my first published work as a creator was at Marvel Comics. And so when you sign those 70 pages deal, I think you guys know what I'm talking about, like those super big deals. Then you realize that whatever comes out of your mouth, of your mind or your mouth, is theirs, is for the corporations. So,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but as a work for hire, you were hired.
Right, because at Marvel you don't have any other option. It's work for hire or work for hire. So you understand that whatever you do is theirs. So you're a surrogate parent and you have to accept it, which is the hardest part because you have an emotional connection to the material that you created. But you have to accept that you're a surrogate parent and it will never be yours.
However, there are royalties involved. I just thought it might be worth mentioning.
That's an interesting debate.
Yeah.
So at Marvel, the royalties, I mean, at least on the contract that I signed, have been very ridiculous, to say the least. It was, and it still is to this day, 0.05% of sales in North America on comics and graphic novels. Mind you, my graphic novel has been out of print for 7 years. So I never had a dime for all that time. Anyhow, it's not a one-size-fits-all contract. There are a lot of different contracts with these corporations. But then after that, I went to Image, and I wanted to know, okay, now I want to own my stuff. So I did a book at Image, and when the contract came, there were a lot of clauses that I did not expect, like, okay, we're gonna offer you to control the rights. We're gonna offer you this service, and we're gonna offer you this service. And it has to be like a kind of like tough conversations with them. We're like, I don't want that. I don't want you to sell my options and take 30% of it. I don't want you to charge me for this service. But not every creator is going to be versed in that kind of verbiage because those contracts are written in a way that they're sometimes hard to read. So I had it modified, it didn't end well. Then I went to Dynamite, it was worse. And I ended up creating my own company so that everything is transparent. And I also work for a big French company called Humanoids, where when you work for them, they make you believe that you're going to be half in charge, but you're never in charge of anything, which was a big disagreements that I had with my management. And so the realities are like creator-owned is a word that has so many realities that you can't just say, okay, well, this is creator-owned. What is creator-owned?
And that's why we're spending an hour talking about it.
Exactly.
Thank you, Fabrice. So, Eli, like unlike some of the other folks here, rather than sort of coming across from some other work that you're doing, you're actually building from the ground up. Tell us a little about your journey and how it impacts some of the conversations we've been having here.
Yeah, totally. Well, because I grew up seeing all this stuff happen and learning about these deals and seeing it across different businesses or musicians that I love who crafted this amazing music and get no money from it, So I was specifically like, I want to make my company the opposite of that. And this is a book that we do, it's called Ghost Agents, and I feel like that is like a perfect thing for movie, film, TV, all this stuff. So my deal with that creator is it's all your own. I don't own any part of this character. I'm helping you get it out and disperse it, and I want everyone to see it. But if it comes down to a deal, it's up to you to be like, well, I want you with me on this journey, or thanks for your help later, bro. So it's like, I really want them to feel that freedom. And because I came up seeing these deals, the Creators' Bill of Rights that, Kevin Eastman and those guys drafted in the 80s, I wanted to make sure that everything was on the up and up, and people felt confident in me that I'm not out here trying to, wheel and deal on their thing. And so my deals are always there. And I spoke early when I started. There's a great guy named Chris Pitzer who had Ad House Books.
Amazing guy.
Amazing guy, an amazing publisher. And so I went right to him and asked him advice, and he gave me these numbers, 70-30, 60-40, what are you gonna do? You're gonna make all your money back, from printing and all your expenses, then pay the things, So I truly wanted to make it wide open for all the people that I work with, because I'm working with, like my youngest creator is 19 years old, he's a freshman in college. And and then I'm working with as old as creators who, like Matt Howarth is like an 80s creator who's like a wild man and smokes cigarettes by himself in his room, but like makes books in like a day. It's wild. Anyway, so like anywhere from like this 19-year-old kid to like an 80s creator who's been there, done everything. So I'm just learning along the way too. I'm always open to that. I never want to plant anything too deep, so that I can make sure that everyone's deal is theirs, everyone's deal they're happy about, and then everyone because I don't want there to be like a world post me with them, where they're like, but like I have a guy, Kevin Anthony Catalan, who does this amazing book Space Knight, and that dude is going to grow out of me, and he's going to go to Marvel, he's going to go to DC, he already has like some IDW work, so I want him to be like happy, and then also strapped with the information to go forward and iron out a good deal for himself when he's out in the big world or whatever. So.
Awesome. So while you guys are putting the finishing touches on your terrific questions, and I'll ask you to line up at the mic here so that we can hear you over the dance party happening next door, I will ask Shelly, so Shelly, you work as an editor and you are working with creators right now. What's the advice that you're giving creators when you see them developing their work, in an editorial capacity, about how to approach these kind of business relationships in today's world?
Well, first of all, I must say that Off Register Press is an imprint that was designed and built for personal work. So it's not a company where we're starting like Eli. We're not looking for lots of creators to pitch to us. So I just want to make that clear. We're at that age where, not like some of Eli's older clients, I was around in the 80s, but I was still in college, by the way. But we're at that stage in our careers, my husband and I, and we have personal work that we want to get out. We're not getting any younger. However, when people ask me questions about what do I do with publishing, I say, right now is the best time to make comics. And the best thing you can do is start small and finish. Whether it's a one-page story, three-page story, one-issue book. Whenever you get involved with any company, from the people up here to the big three to new indie publishers, get the contract and get it vetted. I feel like it's going to be worth your time and money to get a lawyer to look at the fine print. And I do that when I think about deals for myself and my husband, because you only know so much and contracts change. If you don't have that kind of capital when you're starting out in your business venture, there are so many organizations that understand that. It never hurts to ask. My dad always raised me and said, don't be afraid to ask a question as long as it's not costing you or them anything. So asking a question is fair enough. And I think there are people in comics who actually wouldn't mind maybe a free consultation from a legal point of view. And in England, I know there's an entire organization, I think, that actually is there to help with young creators just getting started. Because a lot of times they don't teach you these things in art school. So my best advice is start your work, finish your work, hire someone to take a look at any contract, but know this, the best way to get the job done is when you do it yourself, and you have the tools right now with crowdfunding. There are so many different places. There's KickStarter, there's crowdfunder, there's Indiegogo. There's so many outlets right now that are built to help you. They will cost you, but 10% is not a big deal when it means you're going to get the work out there that you want to make. So my advice is make comics, make the comics you want to make. Be smart when you're signing over anything that's coming from your heart and your soul.
If only there was somebody in this room who knew something about rights issues for creators.
Hi, Rob.
I happened to spy Gamal Hennessy there. Do you have a moment to address anything that Shelly said?
Answer any question.
But I don't need to put you on the spot here. But anyway, that's one of the guys to talk to. So there are such people. But beyond me singling out somebody in the audience, don't make me come down there. Do we have any questions for our panelists?
I do kind of.
Come on. Come on. How's your question?
How do you guys feel about, because so many of the traditional prose publishers now have their own graphic novel imprints, and the structures of those deals are very different from the comics-only publishers. How do you feel like those deals fit into like the whole creator-owned spectrum from you own everything to you own nothing?
Did everybody catch the question here? It's about deals from traditional publishers like Penguin Random House or Abrams or something like that, and how do those kind of deals differ? Anybody here have experience with those kind of?
Well, I have some kind of an experience with that because I've pitched to those publishers. I keep pitching to other publishers, like, because I can't publish everything myself. We're already doing like 20 books a year. That's enough. So there's more that I want to publish, and sometimes I pitch to others and I have access to these contracts. And every contract is different, but I learned a lot by talking to prose people. Like, I learned that for a long time, the graphic novel rights were not included in the book rights. So the creators had full control of everything, even after they published their books. And that's insane, like, because for us, we're coming from a world where the norm for a long time was work for hire until creator-owned or creator-shared opened. So it was like crazy, like, how come we never know? I guess information doesn't travel really fast in publishing. And there are a lot of people who are gatekeeping that information. But I know that now the publishers who have a graphic novel arm, they are taking an option for that in some cases. But I guess you can have more open discussions with them than with comic book publishers, where everything is very, I don't know, monolithic. I guess it's one or the other.
All I was going to say is I know Nick Abadzis, who did the Leica book, is amongst many other things, and he sort of tends to work through the traditional publishing route. And I know he does find it quite a long and
It's very
painful process. The pitching process goes on and on and on, and
the legal
requirements, the legal and all that. So it is very different. I can't talk about that too much. But I did want to follow on from Eli and Shelly on what they were just talking about, because one of the reasons we got into self-publishing in the first place with Mantle back in England was because, and what happens a lot is we don't always manage to stay on, you can be hot for a very short amount of time. So even known creators can get forgotten, again, like music, pop people, very, very quickly. And then people go, where's that guy gone? And you find out that they've ended up stacking shelves in stores because they can't get any work anymore. And I hit that same position. I got to a point where I couldn't get hired by anybody just because new hot guys were coming up, guys and girls, and amazing new young creators were always coming, always cheaper, which is another thing. And so we thought, okay, we're screwed. Either I completely shift my industry, or we self-publish, and that's why we started Mantle, which was very much in the same sort of vein as this. Completely naively, had no idea what we were doing, except Chris had all the publishing experience, production experience from RBK, and I had creative experience. So I was between the two of us, we were doing everything. We had to raise quite a bit of money for that, to put the book out. And we kept meeting amazing artists that, again, likewise, couldn't get any work at all. And it is interesting that I'm a first-hand example of somebody whose career had hit a complete wall and couldn't get hired at all, starting my own publishing company and bringing new talent out into the world, and it was a complete gentleman's handshake, no contract, just all based on trust. We took no ownership of anything. I would never do that again. Of course, that was foolish, but actually everyone was so trustworthy and into it. We had no money, so everyone did it for free. out of love, including us, all the work I did. And it would take me months and months to put the books together and everything. And we put the books out, and so many of those creators went on to get careers because we took that lead, and we had faith in ourselves and the project, and it started getting me work again. And that sort of happened to me twice actually in 35 years. So it's definitely, if you are a creative and you've hit a wall, I would say it's a really good step to remind everybody what you can do.
Absolutely, I'm just gonna continue on that thought because everybody always says, oh, it's just so hard to break into comics. Well, it's just as hard to stay relevant.
Yep.
So you are your own best advocate. And that's why I'm such a strong supporter of a crowdfunding model. You have to be good at customer service. You have to be upfront and honest with your audience, or they're going to complain about you on social media. And if you don't deliver on your promises, you deserve that bad.
Absolutely.
And get the grammar straight.
Thank you. Why, yes, that too. But just in general, I guess I was lucky because I was raised by a man who ran a family business. So I was never allowed to slack off. I was like working for my dad, who's a dry cleaner, by the way. Wanted to be a musician, also has a band. But I was raised to just kind of show up and do the work. So if you want to know how many sick days I took at DC Comics, I think about 3. And for me, that paid off.
What's
My
a
dad-
sick day?
Right? My dad, I would get in more trouble if I took a sick day from my father, who would be trying to reach me at the office, and my boss, Karen Berger, who would be like, go home, I don't want you to get me sick. And that was like a favorite memory of working for Karen. She was just like, go home. And I'd be like, but my dad will be mad at me. But the bottom line is, it's never too late to start really smart business practices. And it starts and ends with being kind and earning respect and trust. And you want to only work with people who show up, get the job done, little fanfare, little drama. I would say, let's leave the drama on the page. We're making comics, come on. So my best advice is just really, if you're gonna make comics, then be true on your word, get them done, and deliver on your promises. With crowdfunding, it's very easy to have all nightmares you never expect. I'm working on a book right now that answers the question, what could possibly go wrong? Absolutely anything and everything when you're making comics. The adage that my dad taught me was mess up, fess up, and move on. That's what I do. If I make a mistake, the first person to find out is the creative team. I say, oh, the printer, it was me, I didn't check it. We'll fix it in the collection. I'd like to continue working with you. I don't want you to be surprised when you open the book. That's always been my editorial attitude. Get in front of the problem, because there are going to be mistakes. We're human, and we're juggling millions of things.
And communicate.
Communicate.
So artists
Yes.
disappear, they just
Yes.
go to see.
I mean, to me, you come to the comic page with this. This is a blank piece of paper, but it's in here. The editor's #1 job is to get what's in here onto the page.
To deliver the minds.
Exactly. And then just to get the job done, hit the deadlines.
Yeah, I remember, we used to be terrified. I was very young when I started. I started in '87, I was only 18. And we used to be terrified of editors, and we'd come to it and we'd just be afraid. And if you got behind, you'd be afraid to say, I'm so sorry, I'm late, this happened, and I'm struggling, I'm really struggling, it's hard.
It really helped in those days that we didn't have any kind of video communication, because trust me, if I was William's editor, I'm barely 5'2", okay? So had I known if I was his editor, he could just sneeze, and that would be it. I'm done. I'm dead. So trust me when I tell you that the editor, it's all about setting up business practice, setting up your expectations with your talent in any job, right? I mean, again, dry cleaning, family business, but any job, you need to just operate and treat people the way you want to be treated, set up expectations in the beginning, and it works both ways. And it's regular communication, because there can be communication breakdowns all the way through.
Yep.
And on that note, I might have to leave, and again, it's nothing personal. I've enjoyed my time here, but I was double booked. I could not let Rob down. He actually said if I let him down, he'd tell people that my book is terrible. So I promise you he did not say that because he wrote a glowing review of Film and Commerce. So I thank him for that publicly and for all the
She said if it was me, she would have left me cold. It's my wife sitting in the front row that she did.
That's up.
Anyway, thank you, Shelly. Thank you for joining us. I count it as a success when one of my panelists leaves before anybody in the audience. So thank you guys for sticking around. Do we have any questions?
I do, but do I need to go up there?
Yeah. No, well, you can if
For the people.
yeah, for the people in the back.
So, as far as crowdfunding goes, do you guys just go and set something up and then get the money going and then start creating, or do you already have a product ready to print?
It's a good question.
Money? How does that work?
You want to start?
I mean, I can't share. I do this.
Me too. Like,
We're both masters. So for me, like, any of my creators, I won't start a Kickstarter until there's something, and it's usually pages. You know. Now again, I think it's a thing because I'm working with people who aren't doing this full time, and so they don't need the money up front to start. You know? Like if you're a little bit further along, you're going to need that money because this is your job. 5 days a week, 7 days, 24 hours.
Yeah.
You know, so like, but for me, because I'm working with people who are kind of growing and becoming a thing, sometimes ghost agents, we have it done all the way before we even launched the Kickstarter so that we can get it printed. You know, we'll raise the money for printing, but we have it almost all done and ready so that we can, you know, get the money, get it printed, and then have it out to people, you know, fast. Because I have done Kickstarters that I backed 7 to 8 years ago, and I have nothing from those, you know? And so, like, that's, like, the worst thing, because you're dooming yourself forever. And so, for me, I like to have people to have something done, something on the page, and again, something to show, because you've got to tantalize the people to even want to buy in. And then also, there's one more thing we don't like to share. Like our creator from Ghost Agents, Rob Jerome, he's like, if we're sharing something and the people can't move on it, you know, like if you share the cover and say, the thing's coming in, you know, 2 weeks, then it's like, maybe we lost our one impression on this person. And so we'll sometimes wait and be like, the Kickstarter's live, here it is, go get it. Because you might only have that one impression with that person, and so it's ready, it's going, here's pages, do it.
My experience is a little different because in 2020, the first Kickstarter that I did as FairSquare Comics, my company, was a book called Noirs in Black, which happened to gather $50,000 without a single page or a single script done.
Wow.
Right.
That's huge.
That is huge, but that was 2020.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, everything was completely different back then. But because the concept was so clear, and I put together a cover that is still the cover of the book, and we're at the 3rd edition right now. We sold over 6,000 copies of it. But it was so clear that people got it immediately, and they were in for the support. Then once we got, the only thing that we got was a list of talent that agreed to commit to pitch. So we had the list of about, I think at the time it was 35 talents, now it's 47. And we kept adding stories and stories and stories. But on the other side of the spectrum, there's a Kickstarter that I launched today called Mutiny Black Girl Magic, where I commissioned the artist. The script is fully done, it's been done for a while, and I commissioned the artist to draw at least 50% of the book, which is done. And we have 3 or 4 pages that are colored, and 3 out of the 4 covers that are already up online. So it's a different experience where you're going to have a lot of things to look at when you look at the Kickstarter page. And I don't know where it's going to be. I hope it's going to be a great success, maybe thanks to you. But it's another experience. Like, what is going to happen? There's a guy, his name is Pat Chan. He made $1 million last year across 16 Kickstarters. 16 Kickstarters in a year. That's more than once a month. How do you do that? He's super organized. He created a task force, boot camp and he has a small team, and they're dedicated, and he's doing his own fulfillment. He's delivering and he's like, I don't know, he's spitting script like a rifle gun. And it's really impressive. Some people have mastered the art of creator-owned Kickstarter the way others don't. But I guess what Eli and Shelly were saying is really true. You need to be consistent, you need to deliver, and you need to hire an editor if you don't know how to do it, because the editor's role is to kick your ass. You need to have someone who will kick your ass every step of the way so that you maintain quality and you maintain consistency. The hardest thing in comics is consistency.
So I've done 4 Kickstarters with Chris. All of mine have had work that existed in advance. So, and one of the reasons these things, famously, there's quite a few, like they've started and then never finished 6 years on, you still don't see the book. Often that's because the work hasn't been done to start with. And people have this very optimistic idea that they'll get it funded and then great, got the money and now I can draw the book. I know, and again, weirdly, from artists, there's the same problem happens when people get commissions. They'll be paid in advance, then people wait 4 years and the picture still hasn't turned up. For some reason, if you have the money first, it's like, oh shit, I've already done it.
You've got the
Right.
sword hanging over your head of
Yeah,
all of the fans saying, all right.
It's definitely I've always found, pay me after, for God's sake.
If I can,
But often what happens, the reason these books don't come out is because the person will start and then they'll get offered a job they can't turn down, like something like a Superman book or a Batman book, and then they're caught into the machinery. No one dares to sort of go up against the big corporations.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. We get artists stolen all the time.
Yeah. So then they're left with like 30 pages that have somehow got to do, around this big job that they're doing for one of the big corporations. And so it's really, it's much better if you can get it, at least most of it done before you start your Kickstarter.
So actually, this is a good point, because we're talking about Kickstarter and crowdfunding coming at the beginning of the creator-owned process. That's not the only way that you can do it. So there's a person I know, Seattle-based writer named Sarah Byam. And in the early 1990s, she wrote a crime thriller series for Dark Horse, and she hired a young artist to work on this with her, and it was a creator-owned title. The artist that she picked was a guy named Tim Sale. Wonder whatever happened to that guy. Anyway, it's a creator-owned title, and the rights reverted back. Yes, unfortunately, rest in peace. The rights reverted back to her once the series was out of print long enough, so she owns it. And she and Tim Sale's widow came to an agreement that they were going to reissue this series. So nobody has seen this book or this artwork in 30 years. It has never been out there. And of course, Tim Sale was a very popular artist and creator. He did, the Batman Long Halloween and all of these tremendous stuff later in his career. But this is a chance for people to see the first thing that he did, and because it was creator-owned, if this belonged to DC, forget it. You wouldn't see it, because they would look at the numbers and say, who wants to buy this? But because it was creator-owned, because she owned and kept the rights, along with her co-creator, she was able to go out to Kickstarter. The Kickstarter is active right now. She's raising money for it, but I can be pretty sure that this thing is going to hit its number, and people are going to get to see this book. Again, because at a very early moment, when not a lot of people were doing that, they said, we're going to do this as a creator-owned situation. Sorry? Yes.
It's called Billy 99.
Yes, Billy 99. So
I have a similar story. Like, I did a book 11 years ago with the late Tom Lyle, who was the co-creator of Scarlet Spider and Robin, the third Robin, I think he did. And I did a creator-owned book with him in 2011 that was never published in the US until last year, when I had the chance to publish it. But he passed away in 2019, and never saw the American edition of the book that he created with me. And I worked with his widow, same thing, to publish it, but I didn't go through Kickstarter. I went directly to stores. And I was very unpleasantly surprised by how stores were not really supporting, despite the fact that this guy gave years to Marvel and DC. They were not supportive, because well, if it doesn't have a mask, we don't care. And that's one of the main challenges. I mean, Liam was talking about it earlier. That's one of the main challenges when you work for the big brands. And I would say never trust the brand. Trust people, learn to trust people, but never trust corporations, never trust the brands. Because the brands are only interested in perpetuating their brands. Only profit and shareholders' money.
Yeah. And it's, which is where we talked about this before, this whole thing, that doesn't happen in any other medium. It's not like, you might get a license for Doctor Who books as a publisher, but that's not your whole thing.
No.
You have a bunch of characters, and every author you hire is writing those characters.
Yeah.
So it's actually a very strange thing to do. But I also wanted to say, our last Kickstarter, the last book we did was pictures that have never been picked up. So it's all creator-owned stuff from over 25 years that no one had ever seen, and Kickstarters are awesome for putting that kind of stuff out, because at least it gets seen, if nothing else, you can get it out.
Yeah, Kickstarter is not just a fundraising thing, it's a marketing platform, because when you have a Kickstarter in progress, you've actually got an event that's focusing people's attention on the stuff that you're doing. So that's another.
And the one other thing I wanted to say about Kickstarter, which obviously we'd all definitely know about, is that you make $1 million, but of that, how much you actually get. It's astonishing how much it costs to send the books out.
The fulfillment part.
Oh my God!
Nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, and the time that it takes. So if you actually if you were billing for your hour, for packing and everything.
I don't know about how you do it, Eli, but I'm still fulfilling all my Kickstarters myself from my apartment.
Box City,
Box City is the best. And you don't think, when you're saying shipping, you're charging for shipping, and now we're getting the dress here. But when you charge for shipping, it's not just the postage. It's you got to find the right box. And this most recent Kickstarter I did for these Treasury Editions dies, you can't find a good bag and board for it. You can't find the right box for it. So then I get people saying, "Oh, it came all beat up."
Yeah, you have to send another one.
Be like, "All right, yeah."
And you get the people who say, "Well, I would buy this, but it costs this much to ship it."
I know.
Well,
don't start international because it's impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
It's I can't possibly back it unless you do something about the shipping. It's that's literally nothing to do with it.
And USPS is writing prices every April of every year. Yeah. Thank you, USPS.
That's the thing about being your own boss, is that you're also your own subordinate. So we have a question in the back there. Yes, please.
Do you have any tips or advice for crowdfunding if you don't have really a large following online, not a lot of people know about you, and there's a whole other bunch of crowdfunding going on? How do you not get lost out in the sea of it?
You can get lost even if you have a following.
So as somebody who has run panels for Kickstarter, I will ventriloquize Oriana, who runs the comics side of Kickstarter. If you can get 30 people outside of your friends and family behind a project, that's critical mass. That will get you to the floor of a first-time project. And also, it's helping to recruit those raving fans, because each one of those 30 people feels like they're in on the ground floor of this thing, and they're going to tell their friends, "This is the coolest thing ever. You need to support it." So you can use that opportunity. Something like 85% of Kickstarters in the comic space funded last year, which is one of the highest totals of any category on Kickstarter, if not the highest. And the reason for that is that of those 85, if you had more than 20 pledges, that was enough to get it off the ground. So those are some kind of metrics. You can go to the Kickstarter site or to the site of the crowdfunding platform of your choice. There's another one for comics called Zoop that's a little more curated, let's say. But so there's a couple of ones out there. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Look at their FAQs, and there are people whose job it is to make sure that you succeed with that. Because when you succeed, they succeed. So don't hesitate to avail yourself of that.
It's funny how this debate about creator-owned shifted to Kickstarter and crowdfunding. Interesting.
Right? Because that's the vehicle for it.
That's because you own your future.
Yep.
And as Shelly, I think, was saying, like, you have to start small. And it doesn't matter. Like, right now, at this point in your career, this is a side hustle. And keep it the side hustle until you have put enough money to make it a full-time job. Right now, don't take any risks. Don't think you'll arrive because you succeed 3 Kickstarters. Even if you succeed 20, you can fail 20 more. There's no guarantee. It's like going to the casino. That's what Kickstarter is. Blind. You go to the casino blind, and you expect to win. And you don't. Also, people don't talk about this. 60 to 70% of the backers are coming from the Kickstarter ecosystem.
Yep.
That means that you have no means of reaching out to them. None. Even if you ask to pay, Kickstarter would let you have access to that database. And that's also something disturbing. When you ask the Kickstarter, hey, how can I tap into this amount of people, this huge amount of people that you have? They say, well, bring us more people.
Yeah, get your own email list. So I have time for one more question, which would be you, sir, in the back. So
I was just going to mention I'm friends with someone who works at Kickstarter, and what you're talking about is something they're working on.
Oh, that's good.
Good to know.
Improving the community within the Kickstarter ecosystem.
I just wanted to contribute to the last question. Something really important is that, well, your campaign page really matters. People that will see that, win them over. Enthusiasm. If you keep talking, if you're responsive, so your updates are really, really important, and people respond hugely to how positive you are, how sort of engaged you are, and if you feel like you're part of their community, that helps a lot. People do, they definitely respond to upbeat. There's so much negativity all the way across comics. We can drill in about all of the bad stuff, but you're talking about what you're doing and the stuff you love. So just lean into that and just show your passion for it, and show your love for it, and show, that's infectious. It's like, it's like a laugh. Someone laughs and he catches it, in something.
Don't forget.
So you sir had one last question. Let me see if
I just wanted to say something. Just
sorry.
really quickly. Don't forget that in creator-owned, there's creator. When people buy your stuff, they're buying you.
Yeah.
Sorry, one more question here. Good.
I think this is a bit of a long one, but it's like just quick what your thoughts are on the influx of scroll comics, like webtoons.
Do you have 2 hours?
They look like more of a partner owned, but you don't really have much control over print. You can't take it directly to Kickstarter because they owned it, and you also don't get royalties until the fast pass point.
So this is an amazingly good question. We're doing a panel on digital comics where we have a guy from Manta, which is one of the webtoon-ish things. I'm sorry that this is coming at the very end because there's a lot to say about that. Maybe follow us out into the hallway, and also Gamal, the gentleman sitting in front of you, might have something to say about that issue as well. So yes, so scrolling comics. The quick answer from my point of view, because it's like I do panels for webtoons and stuff like that. What they'll say is they're a good opportunity for you to grow your audience from the get-go, and then you may have an opportunity once people know who you are to do other stuff.
About to publish a manga from Webtoon, is there something I need to know? Like, should I not?
Yeah, don't trust the brands. Indie comics are amazing. Keep your rights.
Yeah, keep your rights. To wrap up before they throw us out here, let me just head down. By the way, Shelly would want me to say that she is in Artist Alley at 05 with Philip Bond, her husband. They have their books for sale, Philip's amazing artwork and stuff like that, so go see them. For the rest of you guys, Eli, where can people find you at the show?
I'm in 20128. It's backed by the Chick-fil-A. But
it's not your phone number.
No. Shelly wanted me to also say her booth is 005.
Yes,
Off-register press. Offregister.press is her website. For me, you can find me at Cosmic Lion Productions cosmiclion.com or on Instagram at Cosmic Lion Productions as well. We have like about 20 books as well. We're constantly growing. We're taking submissions, and I'm happy to consult with any young creators that are looking to get their start. And
Liam, where can folks find you at the show and elsewhere?
Yeah, I'm A13 here. We have about 6 Stonehenges left, which is my magnum opus that I did for Images. I'm very, very proud of it. So it's some total of my whole career in one book, really. Otherwise, you can find my website. It's shopy.net, shapy.net. And I'm on, I think, official Liam Shop on Instagram, and not on the platform formerly known as.
Right. Not on the Bird platform anymore. So a quick note about Starhenge for those of you old enough to get the reference. For anybody who thought that heavy metal was pretty good, but the magazine was pretty good, but not high concept enough or not well drawn enough, then you should check out Starhenge, because that will scratch the heavy metal itch so much. So well done, Liam. Finally, Fabrice.
So you can find me at I-10 in Artist Alley. There's a big banner with the FairSquare Comics logo and a beautiful black lady that is dressed like the Kill Bill character. You can't miss it. That's our booth. And we have 19 different graphic novels to choose from. And I'm also, just like Eli, ready to have conversations about business and about anything you want. And remember that indie comics are amazing.
Cool. So thank you guys. So one last programming note. So I will be doing a panel at 2:00 next door down the hall on Seattle indie comics from the 90s to the present day. So if you want to hear from absolute legends of the local scene, Fantagraphics publisher Eric Reynolds will be there. Kelly Froh, who organizes the absolutely stellar Short Run Comics Fest, will be there with a very important announcement. And we have special guest unannounced on the program, Megan Kelso, New York Times bestselling graphic novelist from here in town, is going to join us to cover for some illnesses on that. And then if you're sticking around, Digital Comics, 5:15, back in this room, we will have the heads of the 3 leading new platforms for digital comics, which is Global Comics, Omnibus, and Manta will be here. They're like the senior people discussing their contrasting business models. So if you're interested in webtoon versus download versus subscription versus, from a creator perspective, from a fan perspective, we'll be having that conversation in here. And then on Sunday, I am surprised and delighted, that I will be moderating the panel for Sarah Nicole Robles, the delightful voice of Luz from Owl House, among other things, at 1:30. So enjoy the rest of your convention. Thank you for sharing your morning with these fantastic creators, Eli, Liam, Fabrice, and Shelly in absentia.
Thanks for watching. Hit the like button if you love this content, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell for notifications. Thank you very much, and see you in the next one.